Greetings, Shavetails and other interested parties. This is Sergeant Frederick, your Squadron Fire Support NCO, and as I was talking with my Shavetails and some other personnel, I've got the impression that a lot of participants are not confident in their ability to properly execute a call for fire. So what I'm going to do is prepare a series of videos and a couple other training resources that between now and the spur ride you can review, and hopefully when you enter the spur ride you will be a little more confident in your ability to execute the call for fire. Skip that. So for the way the call for fire works is there's three parts for those of you who are completely unfamiliar with this. The first part is the forward observer. You can tell this guy's super confident because he's able to hold his binoculars with one hand. You all on the spur ride, you will be in that role of a forward observer, not duty MOS qualified 13 Fox, but performing the task of a forward observer. You'll be talking to the Fire Direction Center. This is the brains of the fire support system. This is the guys who are and gals who are 13 Juliets. They're processing the fire mission. You'll actually be talking to other 13 Foxes at the squadron level who are kind of pre-screening the mission and then sending it to the Fire Direction Center. Once the Fire Direction Center has received the call for fire and it's been approved, they send it to the firing unit, whatever that unit may be. Organically for us, it's mortars. If we're organic to the brigade, we have artillery, and then we have whatever air assets might be attached to the brigade as well. There's a few samples you see there in the pictures, but that part really isn't your biggest concern. All you need to focus on is your role as the forward observer, and this block of instruction will help you work through that. So our terminal learning objective, we want to be able to request and adjust indirect fires. The purpose of this first video is just focused on the requesting part. I think you'll find that the requesting part is much easier than you might imagine. A lot of the principles of requesting fire are the same principles that you use when you're doing land navigation or map reading, except instead of figuring out what your next point is and how to get there, you're trying to put indirect fire on that point. That helps. All right, so we're going to start with identifying the 6 elements of the call for fire. Now, for you to call in accurate fire, which is what you want to do at the spur ride so that you go at the station, you have to have accurate target location and size. So you need to be able to accurately describe your unit. That is the part you are most responsible for. The rest of it, the accurate firing unit location, it's not on you. Accurate weapon and ammunition information, none of that is on you. The metadata, computational procedures, none of that is on you. Your role as a forward observer is to provide accurate target location and size. Now there are 6 elements of the call for fire. There are 4 that you absolutely have to have. You have to have the identification, the warning order, target location, and target description. And we will look at each of these elements in detail. There are optional elements as well. The method of engagement, the method of fire and control. And I will tell you, you will probably need at least one of these optional elements when you are executing your call for fire. We'll talk about that more in a minute. All right, first off, identification. This one is painfully obvious and painfully simple. This is you identifying who you are. This is you're calling the Fire Direction Center. So Fire Direction Center, this is the OP. There are a couple examples there. The most important example for you is at the bottom. Our Fire Direction Center or fire cell at the top is going to be Ghost 84, and then you will identify yourself as whatever Shavetail call sign you've been given. I don't know what those are going to be, but my examples will be Ghost 84. This is Shavetail 01. There, you have identified yourself. You're already 1/6 of the way through. Now here's where it starts to get a little more complicated. The warning order. And the warning order is part of the first transmission. So you identify yourself and then you give the warning order. There are a lot of different types of missions that you could potentially call. You could just call an adjust fire mission, or where you're going to be dropping one round at a time until you are convinced you're on target. You could drop a fire for effect mission, where you are so confident in your target location that you want to engage the target with the first rounds. You could call an immediate or a suppression mission for smoke, or a suppression mission. And those are used in different contexts with varying degrees of presumption of accuracy. There are 3 ways you can do target location as well: grid, polar, and shift from known point. But I'm just going to tell you right now, you don't need to worry about a lot of this. Your choices for type of mission, all you need to worry about is adjust fire or fire for effect. I would recommend you start with adjust fire. If you fire for effect and screw it up, you're going to lose points. If you adjust fire, you won't lose points as long as you do it right. So that's up to you. Method of location, just 2 choices. You will give a grid for the target, or you will send polar information to engage the target. Grid is standard, but I would recommend polar. Let's look at a couple samples. So your first radio transmission with the first 2 elements are going to sound something like this. If you want to do a grid mission, you would say, Go State 4, this is Shavetail 01, adjust fire, over. You don't have to say grid. Grid is the standard, grid is default. Don't have to say it. If you want to do polar, say, Go State 4, this is Shavetail 01, adjust fire, polar, over. And then the FDC or the fire cell will be ready for a polar mission. Don't even worry about shift known point. You're not even going to have known points to shift from, so let that go. Alright, target location. This is the second transmission in the call for fire, and it is the only element in the second transmission. Target location is that important. So you've got grid and polar. Grid, you can send a minimum of 6 digits, which will give you accuracy within 100 meters. For an artillery target, that's often close enough. Standard artillery target is 200 meters, 200 meter circle. You could send 10 digits. You could take us down to the meter. It's usually excessive for an area fire weapon like artillery and mortars. I like to recommend 8 digits. So if you want to do grid, put together an 8-digit grid for your call for fire. Polar, all you have to send is direction, distance to target from your location, plus an up-down on altitude. The up-down on altitude is only necessary in excess of 30 meters. And good news for you, Muscatatuck's really flat. So for polar, all you have to think about is direction and distance. That's why I think polar is the way to go on the call for fire. In this case anyway. So your second radio transmission, again, it's just the 3rd element. Might sound something like this. Grid, Mike Lima, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 5, 6, 7. Over. And you don't have to re-identify yourself. It's the call for fire is part of that one transmission that began with the first station identification. So all you were saying is what I just read. So polar, direction 5430, distance 3200, up 50, and then don't worry about shift from no point. Okay, for your target description, this is the beginning of the 3rd element of the call for fire, and this is where everything else gets dumped. Elements 4, 5, and 6. First off, you need to give the size an element. How big is the target? How many people are out there? They have to know that in order to properly select a method of engagement or the right ordnance. The nomenclature and nature. So if you know exactly what it is, if you can tell me it's a T-72, great. If you're not sure what your tanks are, but you know it is a tank, then just tell us it is a tank. But ideally, you can be as specific as possible. During the call for fire, you will need to provide target description. So you may not know exactly what you're looking at, but if you can pick out details from it and identify its purpose on the battlefield, you can still give a sufficient target description to properly engage the target. Activity, what is it doing? In this case, it's stationary, could be digging in, could be prone, or excuse me, prone would be part of protection. So protection is it in the open, is it dug in, is it laying down, or excuse me, problems laying down. Anyway, I'm only doing one take on this thing, so if there's errors and activity or in my speech, I apologize, but that's just the way it's going to be if I'm going to get through this today. So level protection in the open, overhead cover, things of that nature. So samples for your third radio transmission consisting of the fourth element might sound like 3 T-72s, 2 BMPs dug in. Over. Tells us how many vehicles, exactly what they are, and their level of protection. Since they're dug in, they're not engaging in any activity, so you don't have to say sitting there dug in, just go straight to dug in. Okay, method of engagement is our fifth element of the call for fire, and there are three main options you have here. First off is danger close, and then ammunition, and then trajectory. Danger close is the only one that you really need to give any thought to. For artillery and mortars, and it does vary by weapon system, but danger close for artillery and mortars is 600 meters. So if your target is within 600 meters, you have to communicate to the fire cell that you are danger close, or the target is danger close to you. All that is you saying danger close after you provide the target description. Ammunition is if you want to a particular type of ammunition in the engagement. However, your mission type and your target description have a greater impact on ammunition selection than anything you say here, so don't worry about that. Also, you don't need to worry about trajectory. Artillery can fire high angle or low angle. Low angle is default for artillery. All mortars have to be high angle. Again, not important for you, so do not worry about ammunition, do not worry about trajectory. Just worry about danger close. Is the target less than 600 meters away from me? And if it is, add danger close to your transmission. Method of fire and control is everything else in the call for fire. You can fire when ready. That is the default. You don't have to say it. In fact, this is what you're going to do. You're not even going to say anything. Just leave it alone, and we will engage when the rounds are ready. Next one is at my command. This might be if you were on an attack and you wanted to fire right before a certain key point in the battle, or if we were expecting, maybe in an OP, expecting to be compromised, we might want to have a mission at my command ready, the guns laid on, so that when we see the enemy come through a certain trigger point, we can fire that. Or time on target. If we're planning an attack and maybe we're going to cross the line of departure at a certain time, then we can plan fires to be fired immediately, either right before or at that time where we step off on the attack. Alright, what is the standard method of target location? The answer apparently appeared on there magically by itself. It's grid. What is the standard trajectory for artillery? It's low angle. Hopefully you got that. What is the standard ammo for mortar and artillery? Oh, I didn't mention this one. This is going to be a little challenging. High explosive. And yeah, just you don't have to say high explosive in your call for fire. Which element of the call for fire do you specify ammo? Which element? Which of the 6 elements? It's fifth element, method of engagement, which is part of the third transmission. Alright, there's a little mortar guy there firing at high angle. And that is it for our first learning objective A. So we'll stop there, pause, and continue momentarily.